Well, they say third time's a charm. This is the third time I've tried to record this episode. But most importantly, we're going streaking. Kind of. Not really. But to quote everybody's favorite fictional baseball manager, Lou Brown of the Cleveland Indians, starting to come together, Charlie. Starting to come together. Let's talk about what's coming together on this episode of View from Outside the Tank. Man, what a game. I had already recorded an episode that I was planning to load today. Didn't have time to load it up. Kind of glad I didn't. There were some issues with the editing and stuff too, so that didn't go so well. But I'm glad all that stuff messed up because now we get to talk about a 6-1 victory in Seattle against the Kraken. A thoroughly dominating performance where, for the first time I can remember, we didn't have that 5 to 10 minute lull in any of the periods. We played a full 60 minutes, looked great doing it. Shorthanded goal, power play goal with a guy coming out of the box. John Klingberg power play goal, Macklin Celebrini goal, Will Smith goal. Yaroslav Askarov looked fantastic. Defense looked fantastic. Just a good game all around. You know, one of the things when I was recording the first episode that I was kind of harping on is the penalty kill. And I still think it could use some work. But tonight it looked great. Killed all 6 penalties that we had. Not great that we got 6 penalties, but it is what it is. At least we killed them all. Scored on one of our 2 power plays, and the goal was from John Klingberg. So hopefully that gets everybody off his back. My boy Cardsy gets called up, scores a goal. Great line play to set up his goal, second career goal, conveniently second career goal, also against the Seattle Kraken. So if we could play them 82 games a season, things would be pretty great. Macklin, I don't know what else you can say. The kid's 19 years old. With his points today, he is now tied for the league lead in points, which is just outrageous to be saying. He's on pace for somewhere between 120 and 130 points, but right now, I think I'd be surprised if he doesn't at least clear that 100-point barrier. Even if he doesn't, you know that point per game is pretty solidly and within reach if he just keeps playing the way he's capable. And for 19 years old in today's NHL, that's pretty unbelievable. Will Smith has another goal. He's climbing those points ladders too, and doing it, looking good doing it. I don't know that he's necessarily going to be that point per game guy, but he's not far off. And if he gets somewhere in between 60 and 75 points this season, I consider that a victory. We didn't have William Eklund for the second straight game. Obviously, that's a big detriment to the team, but they're starting to show resiliency, and they're starting to show that sort of that next man up philosophy, right? Guy goes down, another guy comes up, he fills the void. And that's what winning teams do. And so, I'm not crazy. I don't think that we're going to even make the playoffs. And selfishly, I kind of hope that we don't. I think we're one of those teams that's good enough that if you sneak into the playoffs, that's great, but you're probably going to get bounced in the first round. And now you've lost the high level draft pick you want and haven't spent, so much time in the playoffs. And so, selfishly, I'm still kind of hoping that they fall back to earth a little bit. At least put themselves in position to have a lottery pick. I'm still fingers crossed for Keaton Verhoff because I think he's the perfect one that we need. But there are 3 pretty solid right shot defensemen in this upcoming draft, and that's our biggest position in need. So hopefully we can address that. Yeah, penalty kill looked great. The first time I recorded this, I definitely had some complaints about the penalty kill and was trying to figure out some solutions. But it looked really good in this game. And I still think, Warsaw, hear me out. This is what I talked about when I tried to record this the first time. forever the penalty kill has been 2 forwards, 2 defensemen, and that's not just a Sharks thing. That is a hockey-wide thing, and I'm not the kind of person that's going to figure out new methods to do things necessarily. I didn't really play. I played a little roller growing up, but it's not the same, and we weren't that good. So, um, but I think that there is a reality where it makes more sense to run 3 forwards and 1 defenseman on a penalty kill. The more you look at it, you kind of have your diamond set up already, right? And to me, if you're going to have a diamond set up, then you drop your defenseman net front to clear anybody that's trying to block your goalie's view, clear anybody trying to come through the crease, and then the top triangle of that diamond would be forwards. What that allows is faster legs, which is imperative when you have less people on the ice, and allows you to really cover that umbrella as they start to spread out. Now, one of the biggest things on power play units anymore is the use of a bumper, which is kind of the guy that is in the middle, directly in front of the net, but probably 15, 20 feet out, and sort of acts as that middle person. Well, if you're running 3 forwards, you can basically line it up where whoever is at the time on the weak side of the forward group can then crash on the bumper to make sure that they don't have the opportunity to control anything from that net front position. I don't know. I think it'd be interesting to try out. And I think that as much as sports try to innovate, I don't think there's always a whole lot of forward thinking and trying new things. And I just think that we have the speed and the defensively responsible forwards to execute a plan like this. At the very least, it'd be interesting to see what it looked like if we had a defender in the box, because then, once that guy comes back on, all of a sudden you've got a 5-man unit on the ice, like a proper 5-man unit. So something to think about. I don't expect to see it anytime soon. I certainly don't expect the Warsaw or anybody else is paying attention to this podcast. It'd be great if they were, but that's not my expectation. So I don't expect necessarily anybody's going to hear this, but I just thought it'd be an interesting thing to think about. What else? Askarov. Askarov looked fantastic, made some game-saving saves, really looked like the Askarov, actually in the last couple games that he's played, that quote-unquote we were promised. We have to remember, though, the kid's still 23 years old. Most goalies don't really hit their stride until they're 25, 26. And so if at 23 he can put together a decently solid season, then by the time we're really ready to compete, which is probably 2 years away, and when he's hitting 25 and 26, he's going to be starting that prime. And good Lord, if the last couple games are any indication, he's going to be a real difference maker for us. And so it's tough because you go through this wave throughout the year. Neither of the goalies has played particularly well overall. And so there's been a lot of negative talk. Is he the guy? Maybe he's not the guy. So on and so forth. Well, I think he's the guy. I think we just need to give him time. And if there's one thing that I think this team really has in spades, it's goalie depth. Like, we've got some really talented young goalies coming through. Probably the best group since we had Nabby and Kiprasov and who was the third one? Now I can't remember. Finnish goalie. Can't think of his name. Toskala. Toskala, Kiprasov, and Nabokov were all coming through the system at the same time. Nabokov, was an all-time Shark. Kiprasov was arguably the best goalie the Flames have ever had, and Toskala was no slouch either and had some really great seasons in the league. So I think that we have guys that line up pretty well with that group now, and hopefully we keep more of them this time around instead of sending them off for other things. But yeah. what else? Misa didn't play tonight. Apparently, lower body injury. Um, Probably for the best. Still trying to stretch out this timeline to not have to make a decision on what to do with him. The reality is, there's no way, in my mind, they can send him back down. One, he's looked too good already, and two, what's he going to learn from going back down to the league that he just hung whatever it was 145 points on? The answer is nothing. He's not going to learn anything from that. And so keeping him up on the roster makes the most sense. Now we're at 50 NHL contracts, which means we would need to get rid of an NHL contract in order to keep him on the roster. And there's a lot of talk that's really basic, and usually the talk that goes around when these things happen of trading any roster player or AHL player that happens to be on an NHL contract for a draft pick. And that's all fine and dandy. And that is probably what will end up happening. But I think it's the easy way out. I think if I had my druthers, and this is going to be hard for some to hear probably because I'm going to talk about a couple guys that I think are really well received by fans and certainly by the locker room. Some of you know I'm not the biggest Mario Ferraro fan. And that's okay. But he has a lot of people around the league that really like him. What he does decently well. And to be perfectly honest, I feel like he's looked better this year with less pressure to be the guy. So I think he could be a real help to a possible playoff contender in sort of that third pairing role. The other piece that we have, because in my head, I'm thinking two pieces for a player and a pick. There's two pieces. The first piece, the piece that people will probably be more upset about, is Alex Winberg. I love Winnie. I think he's great. He's honestly the right thing for the locker room. He's the right thing for the team. He's part of arguably the most consistent line on the team currently, because him and Shev and insert player 3 have been playing fantastic hockey recently. He's a face-off specialist. He's a 200-foot player. He's everything a playoff team would want. And we are not a playoff team. The other player that fits that mold, that is sort of interchangeable with him, although I'm starting to see more signs that he's going to be something. Plus, he's younger, and he can slot into sort of Winberg's spot. Well, not really. Misa would slot into the 2C spot, and this person would go into the 3C spot, which is Tyler Landria. He's been playing some really great hockey lately. Scored a goal tonight, shorthanded. Has looked really good. Starting to show more defensive chops. Starting to play better at the center position. And so I think those two are sort of interchangeable in this trade. Now, looking at potential trade partners, the two targets I had are two teams that expect to be in the playoffs and haven't looked as good as they would hope so far. Those two teams are the New York Rangers and the Minnesota Wild. Now, there was a report the other day that Braden Schneider is available from the New York Rangers. He is a 23, 24-year-old right-handed defenseman that isn't getting playing time there. He was, I want to say, a top 10 pick when he got picked. So he fits that sort of demographic we're going for now, is everybody under 25 and a top 10 pick. He's got a lot of talent to give, and I think he would be a possible great addition. And they also, in the Keandre Miller trade in the offseason, picked up a right shot defenseman from Carolina, Scott Morrow, that also fits that demographic. I think he might be 1 or 2 years younger than Schneider. Big right shot. I think he's big. Right shot defenseman. Kind of an offensive mindset. But would fit in really well as well. You know, you look forward to the draft, and you, like I said, you've got Keaton Verhoff is still my number one target. Like, if we get number 1 overall, and we have to take Gavin McKenna, whatever. But Keaton Verhoff, and there's a couple other right shot defensemen right behind him that are difference maker type guys. And so if we get one right now, because that is definitely a weak point in our system, if we were to get one solid right shot defenseman right now, you're looking at that player being either the first pairing right defenseman or the second pairing right defenseman going forward. And as we start to get good, right? And so I think trading a package of Ferraro and Wenberger to Landry for a guy like that and a pick, and they're still young enough that, excuse me, they're still young enough that they haven't really proven anything yet, and they haven't proven that they're worthy of where their draft pick was. So I think it's possible that if we were to trade two guys like that, we could get that player back and possibly as high as a third round pick, which would be a steal. The other player that I would think of targeting, as I was talking about the Minnesota Wild, and this is going to sound strange because he just signed a fairly large contract, is Brock Faber. Obviously, they just gave Kirill Kaprizov a whole bunch of money. Marco Rossi is going to be due for a lot of money. Both of their goalies are potentially due for a bunch of money going forward. They've got a lot of, talent that's ready for paydays. And Brock Faber got signed to a, I think, 8-year, 8x8.5 contract a couple of years ago, coming off of his, I think, rookie season where he looked fantastic. But he's another right shot defenseman, can move the puck, can play some defense. He hasn't produced at the rate that he did that year that he earned that contract in the 2 years since. It hasn't done a whole lot to start this year. But I've got to think that Minnesota would be really excited to get that cap space back if they thought they were getting back a defenseman that could really solidify their six and a forward that can play a 200-foot game and win faceoffs and be that, grinder in the playoffs. Now, like I said, looking at the records of both of those teams, I don't know that they're going to make the playoffs, but I know that they both think that they should make the playoffs. And so I think jumping now to try to get them to make a move to get the train back on the rails, to get a piece back that can help us, not just now, but going forward, would be a really smart move. It's better than trading somebody off the AHL roster for a 6th round pick just to clear a roster spot. Again, I think that's probably what's going to happen, and that's fine. Part of the problem is, though, that all the teams expect that that's what we're going to do, so we're probably not going to get a very good draft pick. If we get anything at all, they might just wait for us to waive somebody. But, and I mean, technically you could still do that and buy your time between now and the trade deadline and then work to make that other trade that I was talking about, which would then free up another roster spot that you don't really need at that point. But anyways, that's kind of just what my thoughts are on that. What else? I don't know. It's just a good time to be alive, like they're playing really good hockey. They're playing exciting hockey. They're scoring goals. Scoring goals has not been a calling card of the Sharks the last few years. So seeing them, like, outside of Erik Karlsson putting up 100 points, they've had nothing offensively to look forward to in a really long time. And, you hope, because as much as I love defense, offense sells tickets. And so you hope that the more games they have like this, the more games they produce, the more games they look exciting for 60 minutes, or at least 55 out of the 60 minutes. You hope that the more of that there is, that eventually you start to see the tank fill back up. And from what I can tell on TV, it looks like more of you are there. And when I say of you, I feel like most people that watch this will be in the Bay Area. And so I hope that's true. But I went for a lot of years. I don't remember what the sellout streak was, but I went to a lot of games of that sellout streak, which was like, shoot, 10, 11 years worth of sellouts or something crazy like that. And I know I say this on almost every episode, but man, there's nothing like that building when it's full. I still will go back and watch the game 7 against Vegas and the way that place erupts. And it can be like that all the time, and I feel that we're not that far away from having a team that's going to make it feel that way all the time. And so that's super exciting. I hope I get more opportunities to go home and see. I did pick up tickets. I'll be at the Vegas game at the end, I guess, right before Christmas in Vegas. So I'm pretty excited to be there, even though it's hostile territory. I've been a few times now to that arena for Sharks games, and I'm excited to go back and hopefully see us really compete against, again, another one of those really uber competitive teams. And obviously, as far as I'm concerned, our arch nemesis. Yeah, I'm just super excited for the way we've looked. Looked obviously really good tonight. We looked really good against Detroit, even in a loss. Beat Colorado, beat New Jersey. Detroit's sort of the surprise team there. The Kraken aren't expected to do much, but beating them like that in their house is a big deal. And beating Colorado and New Jersey is huge. That's something that can really drive the confidence of the team overall. And I don't know that it will, but you look at it and you look at the growth you're seeing now, and I think you got to realize a lot of these guys are really young, and a lot of these guys that are really young, the losing they're going through is the first time they've gone through this losing, and so when they get those wins again, it like reminds them of how good they are, it reminds them of what they're capable of. And I think that, I don't expect those 2 wins to now vault us into 6th in the conference. That's ridiculous. But we're 3rd or 4th to last in the conference now, and we're only a few points away from being like 9th or 10th in the conference. And I think if we just play some capable hockey, especially this weekend, like I said, if we can get a couple points, maybe 3 points out of last year's President's Cup winner and last year's Stanley Cup winner, that'd be huge. I don't know what else to say. Like, the gauntlet we're going through right now, the way that we're playing, is a good sign. And we're going to have down days. They're still coming. I promise you. Like, it isn't going to be all rainbows and unicorns. There's going to be bad games in the rest of this season. But I don't think it's going to be 12, 15 bad games in a row the way it's been in the past. We'll have a bad game, maybe 2. We'll put those behind us. We'll win a couple, and it's going to really balance out. And I don't know that we'll be a 500 hockey team. I would hope that's kind of their goal. I don't think their goal should be playoffs, but be right around that 500 mark would be a really good season. So hopefully we can get there. Also, thank you to those that have stuck with me for the first few episodes. I know that I haven't been as regular as I would like to, and I know I probably say this every episode. To be fair, also on my other podcast, I'm terrible at remembering anything I said. So if I'm repeating anything, I apologize. It's just who I am. But I'm going to try to be more regular with these episodes. My goal, ideally, is to do 1 a week, hopefully releasing on Sunday or Monday. But obviously I've got a life outside of podcasts, so I got to make sure I handle all those things before I jump on the mic with you. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the progression of the team over the last week or so. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think the future holds, both with the state of the franchise and any trades you may see coming up. So, be sure if you're watching this on YouTube to leave a comment below so that I can have a chance to respond, or reach out to me via email at viewfromoutsidethank@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram as well. So be sure to look out there. I'll start posting more on there too. I got to be more mindful of my management of this podcast. But I look forward to hearing from you guys, and look forward to the rest of the season. I think it's going to be an exciting one, and I'm excited for the moves that we're going to make throughout the season, both personnel wise and points wise. And hopefully you are too. So can't wait to deliver the next episode of View from Outside the Tank. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you soon.